Hello and welcome to an all-new episode of Superconnectivity. Phil?
Yes.
Hail Hydra.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. I want to start off on a little bit of a somber note because recently, the time of recording of this, we've recently lost one of my most beloved entertainers, Garry Shandling, who of course played Senator Stern in the Iron Man films, Iron Man 2 and 3, I believe, as well as in Winter Soldier, where it was revealed he was a high-end Hydra plant. Garry Shandling recently passed away, which is both disappointing in the fact that he was taken too soon, like so many great people this year, man. 2016 has been a lousy year for people of talent getting off the planet, man. Part of me thinks they're just building an ark somewhere. Someone knows something we don't, and it's like, okay, get Garry Shandling, get Lemmy, get him off the planet.
But yeah, that's what everyone's been saying. 2016's a bad year, but the Garry Shandling thing, I believe, did they say he had a heart attack?
You know, I don't know. I haven't really gotten all the details on the cause of death. I mean, you know, they had said that it was just sudden, that, he didn't say, although I'll say this much: if you see Winter Soldier, he certainly does not look like the Garry Shandling from the 1980s. But then again, who of us looks as good as we did in the 1980s?
He was 66. They said I don't know if they said it for sure if it was a heart attack, but I guess that's their leading theory right now. But that just goes to show you have to, I guess, keep in shape, watch your health.
Yeah, I don't even know if it's even that. I think, sometimes you just go. And it's sad. But, what disappoints me most is I was really hoping that we were going to see him in a future Marvel film, and still as a sitting senator. Just to show the utter corruption in the thing. It's like, is that what? They said I was Hydra. I'm a sitting senator. My people would vote for me if I was Hydra. Really. I mean, I really was hoping that they would do something with Senator Stern. I was hoping maybe we'd see him on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. somewhere, because Garry Shandling, he'll do TV. He's not gonna say no to that. But
you know what I just thought of? Who would be a great cameo for a Marvel movie? I know he angers a lot of people, but how funny would it be if, like, just in the middle of a Marvel movie, Donald Trump shows up and was like, "Hail Hydra."
Well, he's never going to do that. I mean, it's not until after the election's over. Then, you pay him $50. He'll come and say "Hail Hydra" at your birthday party.
Just how many people would be like, "I knew it. That explains so much."
Yeah, So I'm very saddened by the loss of Senator Stern, and even more so by the loss of Garry Shandling. When I was a kid, it's Garry Shandling's show that was one of the early Fox shows. It was, of course, originally a Showtime show, but then it became a Fox show when Fox, first came out there. And, if you were one of the people lucky enough to be in one of the early broadcast sections of Fox, where they only broadcast on UHF, with the Tracy Ullman Show and Beans Baxter, a bunch of great little shows, and Garry Shandling's show was the jewel in the crown, and really one of my favorite shows. And so, very, very sad to lose Garry Shandling. And I just wanted to make that kind of a point before we got into all the other news that's in the Marvel universe right now. One thing, I don't want to talk about it very much, but as we all know, at this point, by the time you're hearing this, Batman v Superman has been out for a bit, and we will see. It's still selling great tickets, and I see all these stories about, it's selling more tickets. It sold more tickets for its premiere than anything, and I'm going to be honest with you. I do worry about the nothing kills a bad product faster than good advertising issue. I mean, the review, like I said, the Mary Sue dropped the F-bomb. They said the Fantastic Four was better than this film.
What?
Yes. Yeah. Now, I want to give context in this, because this reviewer may not be the best reviewer for this, because she did say she was not a fan of Deadpool, but she understood that people who liked Deadpool really liked it, and so she gave Deadpool like a 3.5 star rating, because she said, I can see how this is a good thing. It's not my cup of tea, but I can really see how people liked it. It was a good story, flowed well. So, she was not big into Deadpool, but she could see how people liked Deadpool. But here what she said was, that she could see herself one day sitting down with friends and wine and drinking and watching, Fantastic Four again. She could not imagine herself watching Superman, Batman v Superman again, and this actually goes to a thing that actually I want to touch on with regard to Civil War, which is that one of the biggest, that if Fantastic Four was better than this film, it's better because it was shorter. There was less bad you had to sit through, so you get extra bad in this. But the ticket costs the same, so really it's all about value. Now I am going into this with an open mind, because I'll be honest with you, people hate stuff that I love all the time, and honestly, I'm saying right now, the one thing everyone keeps going, oh, Jesse Eisenberg is awful. Jesse Eisenberg is the worst Lex Luthor ever. I'm going to predict right now. I bet you I'm going to come when we do a review. I'm going to say, what I loved in this was Jesse Eisenberg. I thought he was like one of the best Lex Luthors ever, being the manic pixie Lex Luthor. I get a feeling I'm going to love that. I got a feeling that I'm going to be like all in that crazy, Mm-hmm. But of course, that's what everyone's saying is lousy. I can just know from the way I know that who I am as a person. I think I'm going to love that character. I heard something really disturbing, but it's straight from the books, apparently. Well, one book, which is the Dark Knight books, which is, I guess, where they're pulling this from, which I don't know. I've never read those books. I hear people say they're great, but there's this whole thing about Batman branding people with like a bat soldering iron. And aside from that, and this is something in the books, and they make the point that it's mentioned in the thing that basically when these guys go to prison, they get killed by other prisoners because they've got the bat brand, which makes no sense to me why people are killing people with bat brands in prison. Because I don't know.
Because people are so reasonable in prison, Charlie.
Well, no, but at least it's like, well, you're clearly another criminal. I mean, it's not like, hey, you're a friend of the bat. That's why he burned his mark in your face. It's I don't know. I don't know. I haven't seen the film yet, so maybe they're going to explain it. But it seemed like an out cold thing for Bruce Wayne to be doing. So this is apparently a really out cold Bruce Wayne, and I don't know, man. I get grim and gritty Bruce Wayne. I don't know if I get like just straight up, Rorschach Bruce Wayne. And that's the thing. It seems to me like, I don't know which came out first, Watchmen or Dark Knight, but it kind of seems like one stole from the other. So I don't know if Rorschach came first and Frank Miller said, I'll just make Batman Rorschach. Or if Moore said, hey, I like what you did with that Rorschach. I'm going to make Batman be that character. I don't know who did it first.
I think Watchmen was first, but they were both in the 80s. I think they were probably about a year or so apart. Like I think Watchmen came out, then maybe the next year Dark Knight came out.
Yeah, but it seems like a very Rorschach things to do. Rorschach is very much, I'm just going to kill you. It seems very much like our Nighthawk over in Marvel Comics, where it's like I don't care that although in that case, and that's a little different because Nighthawk's a little darker because Nighthawk is like, hey, I don't care that the Crystal Warriors are Grand Warriors. Right now they're in our way. I'm going to kill them because I have to do what I have to do. Mm-hmm. Collateral damage is acceptable. But it's pretty dark. Now, Another a review that actually I really love the review is if you go to Mother Jones magazine has a great review of this book. Of this movie. They also hate it, but honestly, there was such love in the review. So well, it actually kind of made me excited for the film again. So it was a bad review, but it made me very positive about the film. So I'm going in with that. But they actually said that one of the things that this will make you consider is that maybe Man of Steel was not Man of Steel, but Superman Returns was not that bad of a film. First off, I actually liked Superman Returns. I mean, it was a little weird and creepy, and I kind of dissed on Superman Returns in the same way that people used to diss on the old Fantastic Four film before the really bad one came out. And now you're like, hey, it really wasn't that bad. It was a little this or a little that, and wasn't perfect, but it was actually a pretty decent film. Consistency aside, Kryptonite Island being what they are, and it's all about real estate for Lex Luthor. But yeah, so that's that, and I don't want to get too much into it because I haven't seen the film yet, and we're going to talk about the film tomorrow. And like I said, I'm actually really hopeful for it. Like I said,
Me too.
I actually think that a lot of things people are going to hate. Here's what I'll say, and this may sound kind of funny, because I'm not as bound to it as I was with the Fantastic Four. The Fantastic Four is a go-to book for me. Batman and Superman, I might be way more forgiving of the nonsense in that, because I'm not as bound to the characters. So I might be able to go along with this version without saying, oh, okay, Although I tell you, the bat branding thing really bugs me. I don't. That seems like such a juvenile. And to give you a thought, I actually had a superhero who did villainy things where he branded people. When I was in high school and I wrote stories like that, it was the Avenging Angel, and that was it was like puts that mark on you so that you will know that you were spared this one time, which is okay. But as an adult, I look at them and think, no, man, that's really sociopathic, dude. That's not healthy. Whatever that was, Alfred Pennyworth did a very bad job raising you, Mr. Wayne. The man your parents paid to raise you in the event of an emergency did a very bad job. Possibly because they didn't put him in charge of your estate. They left you in charge of your estate so that you could actually fire him like you do on Gotham, once a week. But anyway, so that's Batman v Superman. Hopefully it is as great as anything. Because let's not forget, Age of Ultron got bad reviews. Avengers got bad reviews. Ant-Man, everything gets bad reviews. Now, none of them got as bad of reviews as this.
I have to say, I've seen some good reviews. I've seen bad reviews. It seems to be a polarizing movie. It seems like you either love it or you hate it. There's no in between. Okay. It doesn't seem like anyone's like, yeah, it's there. It seems polarizing.
Here's what I'm going to say. Now, CBR is known for softball reviews. Mm-hmm. I don't even say they're softball reviews. It's just, I think CBR is very big in saying, okay, you like this book, tell us what you like about this book. And so a lot of people say, oh, well, they'll just love anything. It's like, no, they just write reviews from a fan's point of view. So it's like, if they had me, they'd say, oh, what do you think of the Elephants? I'd say, it's great. It was amazing. It's the best book ever. But, someone who isn't me is going to say, oh, I didn't like it at all, So they're known for, getting a fan's perspective, which is one of the reasons I think CBR does so well. They gave it a bad review. Mm-hmm. AV Club is usually pretty straightforward on these things. They gave it a bad review. Like I said, I have not yet found a review that was really positive yet. So, I'm sure they're out there. I'm sure there are people who love it, the closest I've seen is, I found a Facebook page called Hood Comics, which is just one of my favorites right now. It's hilarious. And it's basically, it's all these comics but the guy has added, it's battle sequence comics, of Batman and Superman and all these things. And he did one with Wolverine and Black Panther, but he like rewrites the dialogue, and the dialogue is very 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 humorous in how these people get into their fights. And he's doing this series right now about the Marvel fanboy hate versus the DC fanboy hope and the critics, and I'm waiting to see what he does for the third installment, because and for all this said, I'm still geeked to the nines about Wonder Woman. I'm still geeked to the nines about Wonder Woman. I mean, I've said this before, I'll say it again. I think they should have started with Wonder Woman. And this is something, I think I've mentioned this before, but this is something I really feel that Marvel lucked out in the fact that they didn't have their marquee characters, Spider-Man, Wolverine, and the X-Men, in-house when they went into the movie business. Because, and this is the thing, there was no way Batman versus Superman wasn't going to print money. Honestly, they could have gotten they could have gotten Adam West and Dean Cain as one of the last surviving Supermen in this, and had them be Batman and be Superman, and just had them, throw pies at each other. It would have made $1 billion. It would have made the $1 billion that it's going to make. I mean, well, in which case, really, when you think about it, they kind of probably wasted a lot of money. But this movie was not going to not make money. This was going to be a movie because there's such a demand for Batman films and Superman films from the fans. And it doesn't have to be good. It just has to be there. And I think that one thing that Marvel got to its advantage, even though it doesn't seem like an advantage, is that because they were stuck with Iron Man and the Hulk and Captain America and Ant-Man and all these characters who, if you're a comic book fan, you know who they are. But if you're not a comic book fan, these aren't characters. Like the most marquee character they had was the Hulk, which I think is telling in the Hulk films when you look at this idea that when they did Iron Man, they couldn't count on people coming out to say, oh, I want to see an Iron Man film. They cast Robert Downey Jr., which was brilliant, but then again, they had to get a guy who could carry a film. They had to have a guy who was a movie star. And Robert Downey Jr., because of his problems, was the one they could afford. And you look at Iron Man, it is so much of this is what we could get, but because it was just what we could get, it wound up being alchemy. Because they had a character that they couldn't count on to bring in the fans. Because they had an actor who they knew could carry a film, but couldn't always be trusted either. Basically what it is, they had to focus on the story. They had to focus on the character. That the only way this film was going to be a hit was if people walking out of this film said that was a good movie. And that had to be their primary concern, was this a good movie? Was this a movie that people are going to walk out of the theater and say, this was good? And as luck would have it, that's what they got. And they got that with Iron Man, no doubt. They've gotten it with, and I think by focusing on these things, they've been able to build up their universe because they're using characters that don't have the name recognition of a Superman, a Batman, or a Spider-Man, or a Wolverine, or the X-Men. And I think that when you look at Marvel's missteps, you see a lot of these. You see them with these marquee characters. You see Sony doing a too fast reboot on Spider-Man, and just trying to get another Spider-Man movie out there rather than dealing with the universe they had or caring most about story. They just needed to get another Spider-Man out there. They needed to retell the origin and redo the whole story. And I think with some of the lesser X-Men, you had that same thing where it was less about telling the story and more about just getting another X-Men film out there because it didn't matter. The X-Men was what was selling it, not the story. And I think that Marvel just never had that luxury. I think Marvel still doesn't have that luxury, you know? I mean, yeah, Iron Man's a marquee character now, but they've already done 4 of them. Or they've done 3. They've done a lot of them. And, you know, and saying that this is your 3rd Captain America film, these are iconic brands, but, you know, they do have a shelf life. And I think Marvel knows that, which is why they're building out more lesser-known characters. You know, they're not just making our triumvirate all the time. They're building out these lesser characters. Mm-hmm. Now, with DC, when they get to the Cyborg film, when they get to the Flash film, you know, they're going to have to sit and have a good story, because no one's going to go see a Cyborg film without it. But then again, you know, because they're opening with Batman and Superman, I think that they're like I said, I think that they're in this spot where they've got this easy money on the table, and it's just too tempting to just go for the easy money, you know? Mm-hmm. And I think that's where they're kind of hitting their wall on that. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, and we're going to have to see what happens. But for right now, I think that's DC's weakness. But this isn't necessarily a DC podcast. Let's talk to some more Marvel news. Now, recently, we all know that everyone's been saying that, of course, the one death that people think is a very highly possible death is Hawkeye. But Jeremy Renner, not necessarily, but kind of possibly, kind of put the kibosh on that recently. Did you hear about this?
No.
Jeremy Renner said very straightforward, he would love a Hawkeye Netflix series. Now, to actively call out that, yeah, a Hawkeye Netflix series would be great, you can say, well, he might still be dead, but he was just saying, yeah, that'd be great. You know, David Tennant. Yeah. Well, David Tennant said he would love to come back as Purple Man, but he knew his character died at the end of that too. So, you know, so it's entirely possible. But I think that because he went into it about how he would love to do it, that he felt that Hawkeye was a great character for Netflix. I kind of felt that kind of, to me, it says that he probably isn't dead, you know. And here's my thing: is there was this debate people had about what you should do with Hawkeye, and everyone said, "Oh, they got to do the new Hawkeye, but they got to bring in Kate Bishop and give it, you know." And basically he says, "Give it to that Marvel MCU Hawkeye and just give us the comic book, you know, between the adventures Hawkeye that we've seen." And of course, I think that's just the wrong way to go. I think that actually, if they want to do a Hawkeye Netflix series, it should be at home with Hawkeye, and it's Hawkeye, you know, in his downtime, but it's Hawkeye from the movie, so he's actually got his little sitcom family, you know. Mm-hmm. And I see that scene with cute little Lila in school, and one of her friends says, "Your dad's an Avenger, right?" And her going, "Yeah." He says, "But not one of the cool ones, right?" He says, "No." Oh. Well, because it's her dad, and it's like, your dad's not cool. No one's dad is cool. You may love your dad. Your dad may be the best dad ever, but, you know, your dad doesn't have repulsor rays, or, you know. No. Yeah, and I could also see Lila, you know, just going like, "Oh yeah, but you know, my aunt's also an Avenger, and she is awesome." And it's like, "Oh, your aunt's Black Widow?" It's like, "Yeah, she is so cool." You know, everyone loves Black Widow. Yeah, so I mean, that's my recommendation. That if they're going to do that, I mean, they can do some action adventure stuff in there too, but I think a very lighthearted Netflix family sitcom centering around Hawkeye and the Hawkeye clan. You know, and the wackiness that ensues, and you know, you can get Clark Gregg walking in on that. You can have the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. coming through because Hawkeye's in that whole universe. You know, you can have a lot of fun cameos in that, and I think that would be great. And even making it almost kind of the Howard the Duck kind of comedic thing around Hawkeye, in this idea of, you know, the sane man in the crazy universe. And I think that's something that they could really do great. I think Jeremy Renner would be fantastic for that. You know, give him some time to jump around and shoot some arrows and be awesome superhero guy too. But, you know, but then also bring it down to earth with, you know, the kids have a ballet recital, you know. I mean, I think that'd be a great way to take that. That's my thought. What would you do with a Hawkeye Netflix series there, Phil?
I don't know, maybe go more into his origin, like, you know, when he's training, if they're gonna, was he in the circus back in the day? Get more into that. But do you think maybe, well, like you said, like, bringing up the whole David Tennant example, do you think maybe he said that just to throw suspicion off Hawkeye getting killed in Civil War?
Yeah. Well, I don't even think that it's throwing suspicion of it. I think he'd love to have a Netflix series.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure he would.
And for goodness sakes, they brought Phil Coulson back. Why can't they bring back Hawkeye? Yeah. Not for nothing. I can absolutely see the idea that, and not for nothing, David Tennant says I'd love to do more, even though he knows his character dies, but then again, he knows that, as we've seen from spoilers, if you've never read a Daredevil book, dead people can come back. So, not for nothing. Heck, if you're watching Gotham right now, dead people come back all the freaking time.
Yeah.
This is a trope, and it's very popular among the villains.
But that's what I wanted to talk to you about is Daredevil.
Well, yeah. So let's talk Daredevil. Okay. So are we just going to spoilerific it?
Yeah, get ready, people. Spoilers are coming. But did you finish it? Did you watch them all?
Oh, I'm done. Okay. And this is what I want to say. Okay, and maybe it's because I was live tweeting it. I did not get big feels at the end of Parting Shot with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Because to me there was no stakes. I mean, yeah, there was. It's like this. It's like saying, well, they have to go. I want to see Bobby in a gulag and Hunter in a gulag, and they have to break out, or someone breaks them out, and then they have to go on the run. Mm-hmm. It's like, but as it was, like, okay, well, we're just disavowing you. And maybe that's, I guess I kind of felt like I did not feel the stakes of the disavowing, I didn't feel that this disavowing and they did make some points because they, Hunter, says, well, it's not like we can it's not like we're office work people, we don't want to be, in this, and I guess sort of, it just seemed weird because it sort of like was like everyone was like, okay, well, we're just going to agree that it's over and you guys get to go home, but we don't want to see you spying anymore. And it was like weird because it's like, because obviously they know they were agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. They, they're not stupid. They probably knew Phil Coulson was an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. too. So it didn't take them much to do it. And Phil Coulson said, well, they did save your life. It's like, yeah, okay. But at that point, once they say, okay, they can go, having this weird little side punishment that they can't be part of the secret clubhouse anymore, it didn't feel real to me. And that's why I guess I didn't feel the feels, because it just felt kind of. And that's the thing is, like, if they were going to do a backdoor pilot, I wanted more of whatever Marvel's Most Wanted was going to be in this, Yeah. And that's the thing is, we didn't get anything about what Marvel's Most Wanted was going to be. So it wasn't even a proper backdoor pilot. It was just, these characters are being written out, but they're not dead. They just aren't allowed to play with us anymore. And that's literally all it was. It's like, what? Bye, guys. Here's your shot. Now, you compare that to the death of Elektra and the end of Daredevil. That gave me the feels. Because in that, all the risks were real. All the sacrifices were real. Everybody who is in that last battle is there 100%, and they don't know they're going to come out of it. And they don't think they come out of it, Mm-hmm. I mean, we do have the final scene, which, if you've ever read a Daredevil comic, you knew was coming. But prior to that, when we get to that moment, it is really, the emotional journey of those characters was so much more powerful in that last episode than I really felt the emotion. I didn't really feel, and part of that might be because I'm live tweeting Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and maybe it's hard to really get into the show when you're live tweeting. But I just didn't get that feeling that I didn't feel the investment that I felt here. So now let's actually just sort of break down let's go back, going back to the opening. what did you think of how? Now we start off with, of course, we see Nelson and Murdoch. They're around, although none of their clients can afford to pay them because they're being. This is actually one of these things I felt that I really felt that there was this real kind of millennial vibe to this film. Mm-hmm. To this show, because if you look at like Karen and Matt and Foggy, you got these idealists who want to change the world, but at the same time they're now at this point in their life where changing the world is harder, and it's actually going to require real sacrifices, and you've got to make these choices that are going to allow you to stay on the path of idealism that you want, but at the same time make you feel like you're being pulled off of it, and questioning what exactly you believe. And I really feel there was such. I will bet you this show is hugely popular on like the 18 to 34 demographic, like people in that, even 18 to 24. I'm probably 18 to 34 too, because it is people that are in that spot where they are right in that moment of adulthood. Either they're anticipating that adulthood, or they've just gotten through that adulthood, or they're like smack dab right at the start of adulthood. And it's like that. And this is about becoming an adult. That's what Daredevil, that's what makes this a good series. As I've said before, this is a series is so good. I would watch it even if it wasn't Daredevil. I mean, if this was just, the fighter and his friends,
the lawyer show. Yeah.
If this was the fighter lawyer show, because you have to have the adventure part too. That's part of it too. But if it was just, if it wasn't tied to a Marvel property that I liked, and I'm not even that big of a Daredevil fan, but I'm a big fan of this series. It really tells good human stories, and I will say this is like the best Punisher yet.
Oh yeah, I mean, by far.
Without a doubt. I mean, this really got both the anger and the fear and the sadness of the Punisher. Mm-hmm. And I think that's one of the things. I think that you often get the anger and you get the hate, you get the sadness, but the fear of what it means to be the Punisher, I don't think you've ever gotten until what's his name, Barenthal.
Oh,
took
John
this role.
Barenthal, yeah.
Yeah. I think he really gets what it's like to be afraid and how that fear makes you sad. He's lost so much, and he is probably at times afraid he is a PTS case. He probably does feel at times, am I crazy? Am I the sociopath?
Well, I just love that. I just love the whole symbolism of the skull and how it actually meant something, because that X-ray kept coming up. After he got shot in the head. And
oh yeah. Well, they really built to the symbol, and of course, what I loved best about it too wasn't even that you did have this symbolic skull, but that when he takes on the skull symbol, it's just a mass-produced icon on some body armor that was just hanging in the general's secret lair.
Mm-hmm.
That he puts the white on it because he sees it, but that it's just it was just some designer decided to make some Kevlar armor that had a badass skull on the chest, and he's just going to take that. And he says, but they built up to it too, so you really got this. It kind of it's this thing where they really threaded the needle on how to make him a superhero, how to make him a costumed hero, and they really threaded the needle on it, and they did it well. And that's what's great about it, Now there were some things, and this is one of these things I'll say. There are things in this story that when you're watching it, they don't make a lot of sense. But when you're watching it, the show is so gorgeous. You really do give it the slack. And one of the things that kind of I wasn't quite sure, because they do this whole thing, and they did this last season too, like the black sky, a black sky, because there's obviously more than one black sky. It's so dangerous and so awful and so horrible. What are we going to do if they unleash a black sky? And at the very end, so the spoilers, if you're still listening, spoilers, here's the big spoiler. Elektra is a black sky. And well, I get that. Yeah, she is deadly, horrible thing. I mean, you know, she's a killer, stone cold. When she's actually fighting the ninja army, I didn't feel like, oh, this is the unstoppable, you know, Black Sky. This is, you know, unless they're saying that Nobu's also a Black Sky. But then, okay, so we've just got a bunch of Black Skies around, you know.
I'm thinking that Elektra wasn't as unstoppable because she didn't fully embrace the hand. That's when she could have accessed, I guess, the full powers. Because in the comics, I don't know if they ever like specifically say what. Because I guess the hand have like this. They kind of make you believe they're undead because. I know back in the 90s they said they served like a beast and it was almost like a supernatural bend because like even if like you killed the hand ninjas they would just like disappear in a puff of smoke.
Yeah. Well, you know what I kind of took from that, which in the way that they're doing it here, you know, Matt you got to be a Catholic to get this joke, but there's that scene and it's either the penultimate or the last episode, you know, where Matt's describing the hand and he says, you know, they're a group of, you know, fanatics with deep pockets and influence throughout the city. And I was just waiting for Elektra to say, yes, Matt, I know you're Catholic, but let's talk about the hand for a minute. Yeah. Well, yeah, you know, they believe in, you know, like they're just, you know, but the idea is that, you know, that they hand believe in this, you know, this myth and that the myth doesn't have to be real. And it got me thinking that, you know, maybe it is kind of, the Black Hand is kind of a myth. That the Black Hand is more powerful, not as that it is something that's real, but it's something that Stick and the Chaste and the Hand all believe in. So, yes, Elektra's a special person. But once you label her a Black Sky, then now she's an it. And, you know, they're always referring to her as an it. And, man, that made me want to... And, of course, the only person who didn't refer to her as an it was, of course, Matt and sometimes Stick. Stick always called her Ellie. He never called her. He called her Ellie, you know. But, you know, when he's talking to the other Chaste guy, you know, they're referring to her as an it. And I did not like that because it made for that dehumanizing aspect of it, which makes you go, oh, well, okay. Well, no wonder she's evil.
Well, that's the whole thing. Even in the comics, Stick sees Matt and Elektra as weapons against the Hand. That's all they are to him.
Yeah. And weird where they kind of suggested for a minute that Stick was like the first Chaste. That was in like I think the 4th episode where after they meet with Elektra and all this kind of stuff, after Elektra gets stabbed with the poison dagger and Stick saves her life, and he tells him the story of the Chaste, and and Matt says, "Oh, let me guess, that boy was you," But of course, first off, that doesn't make any sense because this was a boy in China or Japan, and that's a white dude. And okay, so then Stick's the immortal. I didn't get into it. It was kind of weird what they were implying there. I think they kind of walked it back when they showed the other people in the Chaste organization.
Unless it's like reincarnation or something.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. But then again, that could all just be, the myths we tell ourselves to feel good about ourselves, which is sort of where I kind of got, that's sort of what I think the end piece was in this. It wasn't even that, that she is the Black Sky or a Black Sky, because we saw there was a Black Sky last season who Stick killed. It doesn't matter what it doesn't matter what that really means. It just means that the Hand's going to use this person for their own end. Because, and truth be told, this is actually one of these things where, you're kind of looking at this and you're like, oh, wow, these medieval ninjas are not ready for what's coming next. Because you're looking at them and it's like, oh, Luke Cage would tear through these guys like Sweet Christmas, because it's like, I got diamond hard skin, your little knives don't bother me much, and and I have superhuman strength, and my girlfriend can fly. So think again. Yeah. So yeah. I mean, that was the only thing that was kind of underwhelming for me, was just that when you really get into this idea of what a black sky is, and it was a little underwhelming to me. Mm-hmm. Although who knows when, because of course Elektra sacrifices herself to save Matt, which is beautiful, and then Elektra passes. But then, of course, we see at the end she's in the big urn that they were like prepping for the magic to bring someone back to life. So we know she'll be back, but we'll have to see what happens next. And I did love when Nobu stands up and stick chopped off his head and says, stay down that time. Although here's what I'm going to say. Here's what I loved about Nobu and this idea that Nobu is the immortal warrior. You know what that means? Where that means Nobu can show up?
Where?
Next season, Peggy Carter.
Oh, yes.
Because he's been around for decades, and you can see wouldn't you just love to see young Nobu in like a fly 50s suit with the fedora? It's like, wah, 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 just being the ultimate ninja. Oh, I want to see Peggy Carter versus Nobu. I so want to see that next season. That would be awesome. And all of it was just such a perfect thing. When Fisk shows up in the surprise, was it 7th episode?
Yes.
That is just so perfect. And you see Fisk's power play and Fisk's, adapting to things. He's like, yes, I figured you would die, but you didn't. So let's make our next plan, And I'm sorry, man. I don't know. I know they don't give Emmys for Netflix, but man, D'Onofrio needs something. They need to create the streamies for all the high quality streaming content out there in movies and films. Because let's face it, this is the new model, and D'Onofrio deserves recognition.
Oh, this show needs
for
a
that
couple
character.
Awards.
It needs something, man. It is just amazing.
Oh yeah.
And we got Gao back, and Gao was pretty awesome there. But man, what did you think with the reveal of who the blacksmith was? Did you see that coming?
No, I didn't, because I was sitting there. I'm like, who's the blacksmith? Who's the blacksmith?
Oh yeah, but you know what? It's funny. It makes perfect sense, but it just shows how you get wound up in the superheroism and that superhero world that you forget to look for what's Occam's razor, what is the most logical thing. And the logical thing of someone bringing in pure grade Afghan heroin is the guy who was, an American warlord in Kandahar, and this is such a, it's a trope, but it is a true trope of these guys. You saw this in Vietnam. You saw that, and you have seen it.
Wait, I'm blanking. What? Who was blacksmith?
The general.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he was the blacksmith. Because and he told Frank, you could, but this idea that you have these guys, and then because they've got basically a warlord's situation, they can get the heroin in and out, easy peasy. They get it into the docks, and they can just flood the market, and they can do it better than any criminal, because quite frankly, if you're a criminal, they can come and say, well, you're a criminal and we're the army and we're taking your drugs. Mm-hmm. It's like nobody else can, everyone else has to hide. He doesn't have to hide because he's the blacksmith. And of course that was the big reveal, was that, Karen realizes that, the guy that was being put in the body bag was, one of his soldiers. And he makes a point to Frank that, you could have been a part of it, but you didn't want to, and all this stuff. And then, and it's actually kind of that Deadpool scene where it's like, Karen's trying to talk him out of just killing the guy, and he just bam, Yeah. It was awesome. And, it was great. Although, did you see what was written on the hidden CD at the end?
Micro.
We're going to get a microchip next season. Hopefully And really, where is our next season, Netflix? I really got to say, Netflix has to start slow casting. Because it's just, I know, we can binge watch. You know what? That's not necessarily a good thing. Because now I'm out of content.
Yeah. Well, are we gonna get a Punisher in the next season of Daredevil, or are they gonna just give us a Punisher series?
Oh, I don't think we're necessarily going to get a Punisher series, but you saw the interconnections already in Netflix, because we see that Foggy's moving to Hogarth.
Yep.
And they shouted out to both Luke and Jessica in this last episode. And we know that Gao is going to have ties to Iron Fist eventually. So we know that, so I would not be surprised if we don't see Foggy come Luke in September. And we got to wait till September to get another show.
Well, hey, that's actually better, because Jessica Jones started, I think, around Thanksgiving last year. So we're actually getting this Luke Cage a little early. So
yeah, okay.
Got to give some of these slowpokes time to watch Daredevil, I guess. Yeah. I don't know.
Now, an interesting aspect on this. So we have 2 shows that are going to be based on the characters' names, which is Jessica Jones and
Luke Cage.
And Luke Cage. We've got one show that's based on a character, a pseudonym, Daredevil. Now, I do wonder if when we get to Iron Fist, if it's going to be called Iron Fist or if it's going to be called Danny Rand.
Or what if it's something like Danny Rand, the Immortal Iron Fist?
Yeah, that's probably the way, though. That's probably a little easier. A little easier way to thread that needle. But I don't know. I'm very excited about Luke Cage. I can't wait to see what they do with it. Because it's... although I'll tell you, this is the thing that I realized that they were setting up with Reyes. Because they were saying about how Reyes was cutting all these corners and getting so sloppy. You know that's going to be how Wilson gets out.
Oh, yeah.
Because, Reyes's office was so corrupt, they framed a poor innocent businessman like myself, Wilson Fisk.
or she did something in the case where some of the evidence is going to be bad, so they'll have no choice but to let him out or something. Yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, exactly. Well, it's like O.J. Simpson. It's like you can say he did it, or you can say, if he was framed, then he was framed. And it's like, once you can call into question the evidence, that how did that evidence get there, then suddenly it's not as valuable,
If the car door does not fit, you must acquit.
Yeah, well, man, but I was real surprised when Wilson dipped into the reserves for his girl, but he had his plan, and his plan worked, man. Because now he's the king of Rikers, and that's a lucrative business.
Oh yeah,
yeah, and he's going to be able to, and he let the Punisher out to go do some business, and and again, for what it's worth, for As Deadly as the Hand, they really didn't stand up well to high caliber weapons.
No.
It's like, Punisher's on the rooftop, bam, 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 and it just strikes you this idea again. It's like, we have arrows and swords. Bam, bam, bam. It's that Indiana Jones thing where the guy comes out with the swords and just.
But Punisher also even had that Teflon or whatever, because his bullets were going through Daredevil's outfit even too. So.
Oh yeah. Well, Punisher knows what he's doing. He's a professional killer. Anyway. Anything else you want to say about Daredevil, Phil?
I can't think of anything right now. I mean, we always have next week too.
Oh yeah, we can keep on talking about this until the next one comes out. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing the next one. I'm glad we got Gao back. I'm glad we got Wilson back. I'm a little sad we didn't get any Owsleys on this, because I want to see what his skier son is up to.
Yeah.
Maybe his son has limited ability to fly because he's a ski jumper. Could be. He gets banned from professional ski jumping because he can't pass the Inhuman test. I don't know. Something like that. We're going to have to see. But it should all be very interesting. And let's see here. So that was... Yeah, so that is all the connections for the... Oh, one last thing. I will say this for all the worry about Superman. I do have worry about Civil War too, because they have said that Civil War is going to be a long, long film. And one of the things people say about Superman is that it is a long, long film.
Well, Batman, Superman's 2.5 hours, so what, Civil War's another 2.5 hours or longer?
Exactly. Well, the problem is that now you can do 2.5 hours and make it feel light and fun.
Yeah.
Oh, but if you don't hit the right, if it doesn't work, it just, like I said, Fantastic Four is being considered better than Batman v Superman because it's shorter, and so.
Yeah, but just from the nature of it, doesn't Civil War have to be a long movie just because you have so many characters in it?
Yeah, I mean, possibly.
And you're introducing Spider-Man into the MCU and
yeah. I just hope they handle it well, and I hope that the story flows. I'm just going to say I'm going to say I'm worried about that too. So that's not all worry about Batman v Superman, but I have as much hope for that as I'm going to have for anything, and I do have hope for Batman v Superman, which we'll find out tomorrow.
Yes.
Okay, so that is all of our connections from this week, Phil. Phil, if they'd like to write to you, talk to you, say, why did you guys go so long this week? Where can they talk to you about that?
You can always write to me, anything Marvel or DC, nightwingpdp@gmail.com. On Twitter, I'm at nightwingpdp. And I wanted to mention this at the end of All New Marvel Roundup. I forgot, but I think it's the weekend. Yeah, April 15th through the 17th. The Steel City Con's here in Pittsburgh. I'm probably going to be there April 16th. I'm going to be cosplaying as everyone's favorite attorney, Matt Murdock. So come see me. Like I said, I'll be Matt Murdock, so I should be easy to find.
Yes, because you'll be the only one who's going as Matt Murdock this year, I'm sure.
I'll be tapping along. Tap, tap.
You're going to be great, Phil.
Thank you.
Okay. And, of course, if you'd like to tweet with me on the Twitters that all the kids are tweeting with nowadays, if you're a twit who twits on the Twitters, like me, you can tweet along as I live tweet Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., The Incredible Hulk, and other shows on television that do air. You can tweet along with me at Charlie Esser. That's CharlieESSER. Look for the 2 E's in the middle for quality. And, of course, write to me in that old-fashioned way of the emails at superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. That's superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. And be sure to listen to me on the all-new Marvel Roundup, the Gamma Cast, and, of course, the Marvelous Review on World's Finest Comics. And that's about it. That's our connections for this week. Oh, and of course, on the Great Marvel vs. DC podcast, where tomorrow we're doing Batman v Superman. So that's all our connections for this week. Connect with us again. Have a good night, everybody.